Right, but you have to actually put yourself in this exact scenario. Just imagine it for one single second. You are 16 years old. It is 1916.
Okay, setting the scene.
You pick up this massive, clunky, heavy, hand-cranked wooden box of a camera, right? And over the next decade, amidst just total unimaginable historical chaos, you essentially build the entire visual language of modern cinema from the absolute ground up.
Wait, build it from the ground up. You can't be serious.
I am entirely serious. You literally invent the way human beings process visual storytelling today.
Are you actually buying into this absolute myth-making? We've been over this.
Yeah.
I mean, if he is such an unparalleled visionary genius, why is his actual track record a complete and utter shambles?
Oh, come on. That is...
Hear me out. The bloke made 16 films over his career. 16. And only one, literally one, is even remotely recognizable as a hit.
That is completely missing the context.
Or, frankly, even watchable by anyone who isn't some film historian desperate for a thesis topic.
Look, you are looking at the scorecard, but you are completely ignoring the game he was playing. We are talking about Lev Kuleshov here. We're talking about his 1926 Soviet masterwork, By the Law.
Masterwork is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Or Posakonu, if we want to be precise about it.
No, precise. We want to be precise today. Because precisely speaking, the man was a theoretician who couldn't practice what he preached to save his life.
That's rubbish, mate. Complete rubbish.
Cinema, the magic vehicle, a comprehensive guide. Journey 1, 1913 to 1950.
But look, I want to bring you into this, yes, you listening to us right now. Think about how you actually watch films.
Here we go.
You sit down, you look at a screen, and you assume the emotion you are feeling is coming directly from the actor crying or shouting in front of you. You assume the director just, pointed a camera at a play.
Which is exactly what Kuleshov destroyed.
But are you the type of viewer who just blindly buys into historical hype? Do you nod along when critics call a 90-year-old black and white film a masterpiece just because it's old and Russian?
It is a masterpiece.
Or can you actually see through the pretension of a director who is clearly on a massive tyrannical ego trip? Because I promise you, this argument is going to fundamentally change the way you understand what you're looking at on a screen.
That is incredibly harsh, and honestly, you're just ignoring the reality of the time. Let me paint the actual picture of the era for you.
Go on then, get your brush out.
Because you cannot understand Kuleshov, and you certainly cannot understand By the Law without understanding the absolute grit and terror of the world he was operating in. It is 1917.
Right.
The October Revolution happens. The Bolsheviks seize Petrograd, and immediately, literally overnight, the entire Russian Empire plunges into the Russian Civil War. It lasts from 1917 to 1922.
A very bleak time.
Exactly. We were talking hunger, smog, political purges, no electricity, it's freezing cold, and people are burning their own furniture just to survive the winter.
Yeah, a brilliant time for a holiday. I know the history. We all know the history.
Right, but you're treating cinema of that era like it was an established, comfortable art form. Like he was sitting in some cozy studio in Burbank.
I'm just looking at the films he made.
Cinema was a circus tent back then. It was a cheap novelty. But here's Kuleshov, an independent director at the age of 16, marching out into the snow to make actual documentaries about the Red Guards during the Civil War.
Sure, he had a camera in the snow.
He is in the trenches, literally and figuratively. He is filming on trains moving along frozen tracks. And because the country is under an embargo, there is absolutely no raw film stock. None.
Right, the famous shortage.
They have no celluloid to shoot on.
So what did he do? He sat in a room and came up with mathematical theories instead of actually making films people wanted to see?
He innovated. Because they had no film stock, he and his students would take old confiscated Hollywood films, D.W. Griffith films, Charlie Chaplin shorts, and they would literally chop them up with scissors.
Arts and crafts.
They would study the physical cuts. He created these films without film, where they would rehearse the edits on paper. His experience in the absolute trenches of poverty becomes so vast that he ends up being the instructor for the entire next generation of avant-gardists.
Yes, the famous school.
Sergei Eisenstein, the man who made Battleship Potemkin, learned the absolute basics of filmmaking sitting at Kuleshov's feet.
Fine.
Kuleshov and Dziga Vertov were pioneering creative editing when Hollywood was still literally pointing a static camera at a stage play and calling it a day.
Okay, fine. He taught Eisenstein. He chopped up D.W. Griffith. But let's look at what he actually taught these students, because this is where his theories go completely off the rails and where you lose me entirely.
How does he lose you? His theories are the bedrock of the medium.
You want to talk about his innovations? Let's talk about his formalism.
His formalism was spot on. It was completely revolutionary. He figured out how the human brain actually works.
It was mental is what it was. Look, for those listening who don't spend their weekends reading 1920s Soviet film theory, let's explain what Kuleshov actually believed.
Please do. I'd love to hear your twisted version of this.
The man treated actors, human beings with souls, experiences, and emotions, as mobile models. That was his literal term for them in his writings. Mobile models.
Which was a very practical way to view it at the time.
To him, an actor wasn't a person. An actor was a prop, a lamp, a chair, an elbow, a face, just geometric shapes to be manipulated in the edit.
Following the Vsevolod Meyerhold's biomechanics, yes. It was about using body movements to express emotion rather than inner turmoil.
It's totally opposed to Konstantin Stanislavski's belief in the actor's total identification with the character. Stanislavski said the actor must feel the emotion to convey it. Kuleshov said the actor shouldn't feel anything at all, just stand there like a mannequin.
And thank God for Kuleshov. Stanislavski is brilliant for the stage, where the audience is 50 feet away in the dark.
It works pretty well on screen, too, mate.
But Kuleshov realized that the camera's a completely different beast. You don't need a 3-hour internal monologue for an actor to show sadness on film. You need the right juxtaposition of shots.
The famous juxtaposition.
This is the entire foundation of modern cinema. We have to talk about the Kuleshov effect here, because it explains the exact mechanism of his genius.
Go on, then. Defend the mobile models.
It's not just a defense, it's a cognitive fact. Listen to this. Kuleshov conducts an experiment. He takes a static, expressionless close-up of a famous Russian actor named Ivan Masukin.
Staring at a wall, basically.
The actor's doing absolutely nothing, staring blankly. Kuleshov then cuts that exact same face with 3 different images.
Right.
First, he splices the blank face next to a shot of a bowl of hot soup. Then he splices the exact same blank face next to a shot of a dead child in a coffin.
Very cheery.
Finally, he splices the same blank face next to a shot of a beautiful, alluring woman on a divan.
That's a parlor trick.
It is the discovery of cinematic language. When he showed this to an audience, they raved about the actor's performance.
Because they were tricked.
They said, "Oh, look at his deep hunger when he looks at the soup. Look at his profound, tragic grief when he looks at the coffin. Look at his lust when he sees the woman."
Right, they projected it.
Exactly. But the face never changed. It was the exact same piece of celluloid.
Kuleshov proved that the emotion doesn't come from the actor's internal Stanislavskian struggle.
So he says.
The emotion is created in the brain of the viewer through the collision of 2 images. 1 + 1 = 3. The cut creates the meaning.
I know how the theory works, but...
That is why they are mobile models. He wanted to make the narrative more dynamic, using the visual appeal of modern objects and shapes. It was a brilliant, almost mechanical way to use the camera that totally suited the new industrialized revolutionary world.
Are you joking? Do you hear yourself right now?
I am stating historical facts.
You're celebrating the total mechanization of human emotion. Treating humans like props, just geometric shapes to bounce off a bowl of soup, makes for utterly sterile, emotionally dead cinema. It is not sterile. It is incredibly powerful when executed correctly.
And the history proves me right. Look at the track record. The man literally wrote the definitive textbook on film directing in 1941.
Fundamentals of Film Direction. A classic.
A literal textbook, yes. But he couldn't actually make a film that real flesh and blood people wanted to watch.
It is entirely unfair.
No, it's a fact. He's exactly like Erich von Stroheim in America. Stroheim had these massive, uncompromising, formal experiments, but they lacked popular success because they were bloated and completely detached from what audiences cared about.
Stroheim was a genius, too.
Kuleshov had the exact same misfortune. He proved that formal experiments in cinema are only acceptable and only survive if they are followed by actual, tangible, popular success. And Kuleshov simply didn't have it. He was a laboratory scientist pretending to be an artist.
Hold on a second. You cannot just blame Kuleshov for his lack of popular success without looking at the massive, oppressive Soviet production machine he was crushed under.
He crushed himself.
You are acting like he was making films in a free market. He was branded a formalist. And I need to explain what that actually meant in the Soviet Union in the 1920s and 30s.
Go ahead, give us the political history.
Formalist wasn't just a critique in a newspaper. It wasn't someone saying, I didn't like the pacing of this film. Under Joseph Stalin, formalist became a pejorative, life-threatening label for elitist art.
It was a dangerous time, yes.
If the state declared your work formless, you lost your funding, you lost your career, and eventually you might lose your life in a purge. The state demanded this simplistic, heroic, pathos-socialist realism.
Which people actually wanted to watch.
This fake, glossy, upbeat portrayal of the revolutionary struggle, where the workers are always smiling and the tractors are always running. And Kuleshov flat out refused to compromise his visual language to make cheap propaganda.
Oh, what a martyr.
He didn't fail because his films were sterile. He failed because the system demanded a lie, and he was trying to build a sophisticated psychological visual truth.
Oh, please. He failed because his narrative was totally incomprehensible to a normal human being trying to relax after a 12-hour shift at a steel mill.
That is such a reductive way to look at art.
But let's put his precious theories to the actual test, right? Let's stop talking in the abstract and look at the one film that supposedly works, By the Law, 1926.
His absolute peak.
This is his peak, yes. The only film out of the 16 that gets any respect from critics today. And I ask you, the listener, as we break down the plot of this so-called masterwork, is this a masterpiece of human psychology, or is this just an arrogant academic punishing his audience for an hour and a half?
It is an absolute masterpiece of naturalist drama, and the source material alone proves it. Kuleshov and Viktor Shklovsky, who is a massive literary figure in his own right, wrote the script basing it entirely on Jack London's short story, The Unexpected.
Jack London, right. The wolf guy.
Jack London, the American pioneer of commercial magazine fiction, the guy who wrote The Call of the Wild and White Fang. But this isn't a romantic story about a dog finding its spirit in the woods.
No, it is not.
This is a brutal, grounded story about isolation, greed, and the absolute breaking point of the human psyche.
Right, so let's set the actual scene for you listening, because if you want to understand why I think this film is an absolute slog, you have to feel the environment.
It's incredibly atmospheric.
Imagine the Klondike during the gold rush, the Yukon. It is the dead of a severe, unrelenting winter. 5 people are completely isolated in a tiny, filthy, claustrophobic cabin working a gold claim.
And it is freezing.
It is freezing. The wind is constantly howling outside. They are caked in dirt. They are exhausted. And the cabin fever is so thick you could physically choke on it.
And among these 5 is a man named Michael Denon, played brilliantly by Vladimir Fogel. Denon is the underdog of the group.
He's the punching bag.
He's an Irish immigrant. He's constantly mocked, constantly disregarded, laughed at by the others. They treat him like absolute dirt.
Make him do all the chores.
They make him wash the dishes while they gloat over the gold they've found. And the psychological tension just builds. Kuleshov uses these incredibly tight, suffocating close-ups. You see the sweat on their faces, the greed in their eyes.
It's very intense, I'll give him that.
Denon is just absorbing this abuse, day after day, in this tiny wooden box of a cabin, until snap.
Just cold-blooded murder.
Raw, explosive violence born out of complete psychological collapse. In an absolute terrifying fit of rage, Denon picks up a rifle and shoots 2 of his companions dead while they're eating.
Out of nowhere.
He doesn't even say a word, he just butchers them.
Right, so now you have 3 people left alive in this tiny, blood-splattered cabin. The 2 survivors are a married couple, Edith and Hans Nelson.
Played by Alexandra Kokolova and Sergei Komarov.
Yes. They manage to fight back, they overpower Michael, they wrestle the gun away, they tie him up, and they are waiting for the weather to clear so they can hand him over to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
But here's the rub, and this is where the moral brilliance of the film kicks in. This is where I want you, the listener, to actually put yourself in this cabin.
It's a nightmare scenario.
Spring arrives. The ice on the river melts, and sudden, severe floods completely wash out the trail. They are utterly cut off from civilization.
Nobody is coming.
Nobody's coming. The police aren't coming. They are trapped in this tiny cabin with the man who just butchered their friends in front of them. The tension is physically exhausting.
They are rationing food. They are starving.
They have to take turns sleeping with a rifle on their laps, because if they both nod off, Denon will skip his ropes and kill them. They are emotionally destroyed.
And they have a choice. Do they kill him?
Exactly.
I'm asking you, listening. You're freezing, you're exhausted, you haven't slept properly in weeks, and there's a murderer tied up in the corner of your cabin watching you. Do you string him up?
It's the primal instinct versus civilization.
Because, frankly, I'd be sorely tempted. Put a bullet in him and bury him in the snow. It's self-defense at that point.
But Edith Nelson, she has this incredibly strict, unyielding sense of justice. She utterly refuses to let her husband lynch Michael out of hand.
Which is madness.
She is a woman of the Victorian era, clinging to the idea of civilization. But as the weeks drag on, the situation becomes completely intolerable. They are going mad.
Oh,
So what do?
the dumbest thing possible.
They decide to conduct a formal trial. Just the three of them, in the cabin, according to the quote-unquote rule of law.
And this is where I say, are you actually joking? You can't be serious.
It is an incredible plot development.
You're starving in a flooded cabin with a murderer, and you decide to play judge and jury. You're going to hold a mock court session.
To maintain their humanity, yes.
Oh, I call the defendant to the stand while your friend's blood is still stained on the floorboards. It's a bit dodgy, isn't it? It's utterly bloated, it's absurd, and it totally derails the pacing of the film. What starts as a tense survival thriller grinds to a halt so Kuleshov can play philosopher.
You completely missed the point. It's not bloated. It's a terrifying, agonizing exploration of morality.
It's boring.
It's Kuleshov asking the ultimate question. What separates human beings from animals in the wild? It comes incredibly close to Erich von Stroheim's Greed and how it dissects human avarice and civilized hypocrisy.
Well, Greed is a much better film.
It is an uncompromising portrayal of the cruel truth about mankind. Its raw expressiveness. The fact that Edith tries to cling to the rule of law when the law has completely, totally abandoned them is a brilliant, agonizing moral dilemma.
It's just artificial.
She is trying to impose a mathematical structure, the law, onto raw, chaotic human nature, just like Kuleshov's editing theories.
No, it's a theoretician getting high on his own supply. He doesn't know how to tell a story about real humans, so he forces them to act like court officials in the middle of the Yukon.
That is such a cynical view.
But let's look at the technical execution of this supposed moral dilemma, because this is where Kuleshov's mobile model nonsense really gets put to the test.
I am so glad you brought up the execution, because the cinematography in this film, done by Alexander Levitsky and Konstantin Kuznetsov, is a monumental achievement in film history.
It looks fine.
The art direction by Isaac Maklis in that cabin is so grimy, so claustrophobic, and so viscerally real that you can practically smell the damp wood.
The set was decent, yes.
But the editing.
But?
The editing.
Here we go.
No, listen to how it works. Kuleshov uses rapid-fire cut editing during the murder scene, and later during a scene where they try to celebrate Edith's birthday amidst this nightmare. That is properly genius.
It's just fast cutting.
We have to explain how he does this. He doesn't just cut between faces. He is cutting on motion, creating a rhythm. He studied the rhythm of industrial machinery. He wanted the cuts to mimic the rhythm of a steam engine.
Because he loved machines more than people.
So he starts with a shot that lasts, say, 24 frames, a full second. Then the next shot is 12 frames, then 6, then 3.
A mathematical formula.
He is mathematically accelerating the cuts to literally sync with the viewer's accelerating heartbeat to induce a state of physical panic in the cinema. It is incredibly modern. It is the grandfather of the modern thriller.
Wait. I'll give you the murder scene. The murder scene has pace. It has violence. I felt something during that scene.
Thank you.
But the trial and the execution scenes, complete and utter shambles. They are incredibly tense.
And it's not just me saying this to be a contrarian. The historical consensus of his peers agreed. These scenes were incredibly padded. They are insufficiently motivated. They lacked credibility.
They lacked credibility to Soviet state censors, maybe.
They are inappropriately staged. And frankly, the highly stylized acting completely fails the gravity of the situation. Kuleshov was aiming for some bizarre avant-garde tone of tragic comedy during a scene where a man is begging for his life and he completely misses the mark.
He doesn't miss the mark.
It's totally jarring. You have actors flailing about with rigid biomechanical movements instead of acting like exhausted humans. It's not jarring. It's ambiguous. He didn't want a simple, dense, pedestrian naturalist drama. He stylized the acting on purpose to make you uncomfortable.
Well, he succeeded there.
He wanted you to question the absurdity of the law.
Uncomfortable. He made the audience uncomfortable because of who he cast. Let's talk about the massive nepotism elephant in the room that everyone always glosses over when they worship this man.
Oh, this is such a tired argument.
He cast his own wife, Alexandra Kokolova, as Edith, the lead.
So what? Directors cast their partners all the time. Look at Fellini, look at Goddard, look at Tim Burton.
Yeah, but Kokolova was, by all accounts of the 1920s Soviet era, completely defying conventional beauty standards. The state critics absolutely hated her.
Because they were closed-minded.
The Soviet public didn't know what to make of her. She was incredibly gaunt, angular, with these massive, intense, almost frightening eyes.
She had an incredibly expressive face.
And yet Kuleshov kept shoving her into leading roles, totally ignoring the audience's needs and desires for a relatable or conventionally appealing protagonist.
That is just blatant sexism, and you know it.
He was a proper narcissist,
Yeah.
actively sacrificing the popularity and accessibility of the film just to prove his own mathematical theories about mobile models using his wife as the primary test subject.
That's rubbish, mate. It's absolute categorical rubbish. You're asking for Hollywood gloss in a 1920s Soviet film about starvation and murder in the Klondike.
I am asking for an actor people wanted to watch.
Casting Kokolova was a deliberate, brilliant rejection of those exact conventional bourgeois requirements. Her face, her gaunt, intense, unconventional, terrifying look that is the face of the cruel truth.
It was nepotism.
She looks exactly like a woman who has been starved and psychologically tortured in a cabin for 3 months. It's an uncompromising portrayal.
People still have to look at the screen.
What do you want? You want him to cast some glamorous, plump starlet with perfect makeup so you can feel comfortable while watching a mock trial about a double homicide.
I want him to make a film that actual human beings in the 1920s wanted to watch instead of alienating them on purpose to score points in a film journal.
He wasn't trying to score points.
And nowhere is this alienation more obvious and more infuriating than the ending. Oh, the ending of this film.
The ending is perfection. It is one of the greatest endings in silent cinema.
It is tone-deaf whimsy. Listen to this, listener. Just picture this in your head.
Please, yes, picture it. It's brilliant.
After this exhausting, bloated mock trial where they've argued about the law for half an hour, they finally sentence Michael Denon to death.
Right.
They take him outside into the howling wind. They string him up to a tree. They hang him. The deed is done.
The ultimate application of their makeshift law.
The Nelsons, Edith and Hans, go back into their cabin, completely half-crazed by the ordeal, shaking, traumatized, their humanity completely stripped away. And then, what happens?
The greatest twist.
The door bursts open. Michael appears in the doorway. He survived the hanging because the branch snapped or the rope slipped. He's standing there with a bloody rope still around his neck.
Yes. The tension is unbelievable.
Yes. And what does he do? Does he lunge at them? Does he kill them for revenge? Does he drop dead?
He does something completely unexpected.
No. He casually takes the gold they mined. He throws the broken noose at their feet and literally says the words, "for luck," and then he just vanishes into the wet, stormy darkness.
It's cinematic poetry.
It's like a bloody Looney Tunes ending. For luck? Are you kidding me? After all that grueling, miserable 80-minute tension, you give us a sarcastic punchline.
It is not a punchline. It is the ultimate tragicomic release. It's ambiguous, it's bizarre, it's exactly how trauma works.
Trauma doesn't make you deliver a witty one-liner and wander off into a blizzard.
You think everything in life resolves cleanly. You think a man who just survived his own execution is going to act logically.
I think a director should know how to end a story.
It's a profound statement on the absolute absurdity of their attempt to impose the law. The law failed. The rope failed. All that is left is the chaos of nature. It's brilliant.
It's a cop-out.
But look, we clearly are never going to agree on this, and we've been going around in circles on it for ages.
Because you refuse to admit it's a shambles.
Look, the research in cinema, the magic vehicle, is spot on here. The authors argue that Kuleshov was trying to build a completely new visual language.
Oh, here we go with the book again.
They call it a monumental achievement for a reason. He was fusing gritty realism with avant-garde editing because he had the stones to try something nobody else dared.
I reckon the book is being way too kind to him, to be honest. You call it ambition, I call it a massive ego trip.
It wasn't an ego trip.
Just because a director spends a fortune and makes everyone miserable on set doesn't make him a genius. He was a proper narcissist with a camera, and I think the book lets him off the hook because it's a classic.
Rubbish. It's not an ego trip, it's an evolution. The book gives you the actual credits and the technical breakthroughs that changed how every film is made today.
They give him too much credit.
If you find the scale of it a bit of a slog, that's on you, not the history.
I'm just saying, I'm looking at it with a modern eye, and it's half brilliant and half nonsense. The book defends him through a historical lens, but I'm sitting here thinking, mate, cut 30 minutes out of that scene and we'd actually have a story. It's bloated.
We've done 40 of these, so you know we're never going to agree. If you want to see if my colleague here is just being a cynical git or if the book actually has it right, buy the thing. The link is in the description. Do you actually have the spine to read the real history, or are you staying lazy? Your call.
Go ahead, buy it. Read it for yourself. See for yourself how a director ruined his own career with his uncompromising arrogance. Because that's what happened, didn't it?
Ruined his career. That's quite the overstatement.
We can talk about his theories all day, but let's talk about the absolute unavoidable fall of Lev Kuleshov.
The fall of the formalist. It's a tragedy, really. An absolute tragedy of state censorship.
It's karma. He refused to give the audience or the state what they wanted. He made this film on a remarkably modest budget, 1,673 meters of Goskino film, which is absolute pennies.
He was incredibly efficient with his resources.
It's nothing compared to the massive historical epics Eisenstein was churning out with October or Potemkin. And because he lacked powerful political supporters in the Soviet film production system.
Because he wouldn't play their political games.
And because he was constantly criticized by the press for pretentiousness, for his obsession with mobile models, and for a total disregard for the norms of screen narrative. He got crushed. He dug his own grave.
He was severely criticized by the state press for putting the rule of law in doubt. That was his real crime.
His real crime was making a boring movie.
In the Soviet Union in the 1920s, questioning the absolute authority of the law, even in a completely isolated cabin in the Klondike, was seen as incredibly dangerous, subversive behavior.
They just wanted clear messaging.
He was a tragic martyr of art, completely crushed by state demands. They wanted a lack of pathos. They wanted simple, digestible propaganda that told the workers exactly how to feel, and he gave them a dense, morally ambiguous psychological thriller.
He was out of touch.
Other independent directors, guys who were willing to bend a little, managed to hold out until the 1930s before the state took over completely and mandated socialist realism. But Kuleshov, because he wouldn't compromise, had to surrender in the late 1920s.
He ran out of options.
By the law, was basically the last film that fully reflects his own creative intentions. After that, he was broken.
He wasn't a martyr. He was an arrogant academic who forgot that cinema is actually supposed to entertain and move real people, not just prove a mathematical editing theory on a chalkboard.
Cinema is an art form, not just a carnival ride.
He dug his own grave by alienating everyone who could have protected him. If you treat your actors like furniture, if you treat your audience like lab rats in a cognitive experiment, you can't cry when the studio pulls your funding and the state shuts you down.
He didn't treat them like lab rats. He treated them with respect by assuming they were smart enough to handle ambiguity and complex visual storytelling.
Well,
He trusted the audience's brain.
Well, the audience's brain rejected the experiment. We are never going to resolve this. It is a fundamental difference in how we view the medium.
Literally.
You see a visionary crushed by an oppressive state. I see a snob who refused to adapt to the reality of the industry.
Brilliant. We'll leave it at that. Let the listener decide.
Actually, hold on a second. Before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought about Kuleshov's grand theory.
Oh boy. What now?
We've spent this whole time arguing about whether treating actors purely as mobile models, just geometric shapes to be manipulated in the edit, was a sterile, cold 1920s mistake. We've called him a narcissist and a theoretician.
You called him those things.
But think about what you actually go to the cinema to see this weekend. If Kuleshov's ultimate goal was reducing human beings to visual data, stripping them of their internal Stanislavskian reality, just to be smashed together by an editor.
Where are you going with this?
Isn't that exactly precisely what Hollywood does today with CGI and green screens? We criticize him for being cold and mechanical, yet we pay billions of dollars every summer to watch digital models. Literally, computer-generated mobile models get manipulated in a digital edit without an ounce of human soul on set.
That's a massive leap in logic.
Actors acting to tennis balls on sticks. Maybe Kuleshov wasn't an arrogant snob failing in the past. Maybe his ego trip just accurately predicted the exact mechanical future of the entire bloody industry.
Oh, right. Well, I think that's completely mental, but we are absolutely out of time.
Typical. Always running from the truth when it gets uncomfortable. See you next time.
Shut up. Goodbye.